Welcome to the Relationships Inside Out podcast with Doctors Gregory Seibert and Kimberly Murray, licensed marriage and family therapists. Join them on this journey as they explore the ins and outs of relationships.
Well, welcome to Relationships Inside Out, where today we're going to talk about needs versus wants.
This subtle shift in language can be profound, especially in couples relationships.
I need everything. I need it all. It's never a want, it's a need, right? So how do we distinguish? I mean, this is very gray and it gets muddled and very confused for a lot of people. Even in the world of psychology, it gets pretty confusing. Mm-hmm. So how would we distinguish them?
So I coach a lot of couples on need is something that is actually core to my body. Mm-hmm. I need it. So when you think of the word need, I really want you to think about like deep need. Mm-hmm. Want is, I mean, it sounds great. Mm-hmm. But I can be okay without it. Yeah. Need, more non-negotiable, more vital to our health, mental health, physical health. Mm-hmm. So I need to eat healthy. I need to have time to work out. Want would be, I want to go on a trip.
Yeah. Desire. And that's kind of how I distinguish is the need is really, you need to live, oxygen, shelter, like something that if you do not get, you're going to deteriorate. Mm-hmm. A want is an urge. Yeah. Often in the moment, often immediate, often influenced by society of telling us what we need, like that new iPhone or this beautiful car, or, I mean, those are urges, right? So,
right. We use it in our home. So there's a big difference in the sentence and it's very subtle. It's one word. Mm-hmm. If I tell my husband, like, oh, I want a break from the girls versus I need a break from the girls. Mm-hmm. He is immediately pivoting his brain to, hey girls, let's go somewhere else. Or you go upstairs, I've got the girls, because now he knows I'm burning out. My mental health may be taking a hit. This is something that has to change for me to stay in a good spot. Versus want, like they're annoying, but I can keep doing them, be just fine. Yeah. And I don't mean my children are annoying. Yeah. But you know.
Well, and what's important here, and you talking about this, is you're very aware of the distinction for yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of times in couples we hear, like, I just need you to do this. I need you to support me for me to live. It's like, hold on, let's break this down.
Yeah.
If your partner's not present, does that mean you're going to die? Mm-hmm. Does it? Right. And how much do we use it as a weapon?
Mm-hmm. Or I need that new shirt. Mm-hmm. We see it in teenagers a lot, but also adults. Mm-hmm. But like, I need that new iPhone. I need that new whatever. I always say new, right? But that just leans on that desire. Do you actually need that? Or is it this really intense urge desire within our body? Mm-hmm. One can be somewhat negotiated if you actually take a breath, right? And slow down your mind. Versus one, oh, really, if I don't fulfill this need, there's going to be consequences to my body, to my health.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in a relationship, as humans, we need connection.
Yeah.
We're very social creatures. So we need that connection. But then we break it down to little specific, issues within the relationship. You're not meeting my sexual needs. What does that look like? So if your partner is not performing X act, are you going to deteriorate?
Right. Or is it just a desire? Mm-hmm. Some people do actually need more, and specifically with sex, right? Do need sex a bit more than other people. For them, it really is a need. It impacts their mental health. It impacts their physical health. But are those reasonable?
That's hard for me.
It's a gray area. It's tough.
It's hard for me to conceptualize somebody needing sex more, because what would happen if you didn't get it? Like, and a lot of times when I hear that, it's followed by, well, and I ask this question is, well, what happens if you don't get it? Well, it means they don't love me. It means they don't. And there's like this, attribution behind the meaning that they make around it that is not really about I need it to survive. It's largely around self-worth.
I think about it in terms of love languages, right? Like physical touch. Some people draw more enjoyment, oxytocin from sex than other people, right? Like I need positive connection with my husband. I need time where we aren't on screens, where we are just spending quality time as a family. Otherwise, it really does pull from my mental health. There are other people who that lack of sex creates disconnection. It reduces their oxytocin. So I And this is the beauty of it, right? The way I see it versus the way you see it versus someone else can look very different.
Because I feel like sex isn't the only way we can get that.
True.
There's other ways to get it. And this goes back to the definition of needs, is like, what is it that we need? And granted, I think, it's going to vary by the individuals. And this is why we're having this conversation, because a conversation needs to happen of what those are for each other. But it's the dangerous piece for me is when a partner will say, I need this. And they're not willing to admit that the reason why they're saying that is because they're putting more pressure on their partner out of their own anxiety or insecurity.
Sure.
That's kind of where my biggest issue comes with when people use that need language consistently. Like, I need this. Well, if you need this, what's going to happen? Like, you're going to divorce, like maybe over time, if this doesn't happen, it's not going to go well, but there's other parts of your relationships. What else is going on? I think the big distinction for me is urge and desire versus without it, I can't survive.
Or that there'll be some consequences with it, right? Like, I can muscle through parenting and I'll survive, but it doesn't mean that it won't harm my mental health, especially in that day, right?
Sure.
And so needs can look as big as survival needs, but it can also look like, in this moment, I need support. In this moment, I need a hug. That's important to my mental health, to my physical health.
Yeah.
But it's not using the word I need for everything.
Yeah,
this is where it gets really tricky. It's like cried wolf, right?
That hot dog from Costco.
If you're dealing with a pregnant woman, sometimes that is a real need. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I can see what you're talking about with the need, right? I mean, it depends on how you conceptualize it from my mental, like, especially support. I need support right now. I look at it.
You won't die without it, but there can be consequences.
Is it deteriorating mentally, physically? And that could be something, distinguishment. Yeah.
And so being really intentional, the one thing I want to encourage here, intentional use of that language. If we're always saying I need, it gets really hard for a partner to understand what is actually non-negotiable and has to happen, and what is just a desire or something that we can talk about, or what is a pressing matter and what is just something like I'm feeling a sense of like urgency about.
Yeah. And the reason why it's also very tricky is because it also is part of codependency. I need this person, my partner, to do X for me to feel good about myself. That can't be. Like, that's not healthy. It's not healthy to depend on everyone else to get your needs met. It could be important.
Balancing that sometimes we still do need that connection or support.
It goes back to our previous episode on attachment. It's a balance.
Yeah.
Right. We have to fill our own needs, but it can't be solely on our partner. I've heard partners saying, like, I need this. I'm going to go into this dark hole if I don't get your support. And it's like, that's not true.
Yeah.
You have autonomy in your ability to manage and cope yourself. It can't be completely dependent upon this other person meeting your needs. So that's an important thing too, is why we're distinguishing what needs are wants and communicating them. We have to ask ourselves, are we using it as a weapon?
Right. It's almost like a tool of manipulation. Or is it something that we really need? Or is it something that we're desiring and it's important to me because of X? Like, I desire this and I have an urge for this because this is what it means to me in our relationship. Like, I really need to stay connected for my personal needs to be met. I think this is that gray, right? Some are survival based. Some are really obvious. I need food.
Shelter. Yeah.
But some are less obvious, right? Like, I am a person where I need alone time daily. Other people, they don't.
Yeah.
For me, if I don't, especially over time, the consequences of that are burnout, are anxiety, are depression. I'm a worse parent by far.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it has a really profound ripple effect. And so getting really clear, and this is step one. What are your needs? Not your wants, your needs.
Yeah.
Your partner can't know what those are if you don't know what they are.
Yeah.
That's a big piece in working with couples is I'll hear people say, well, what do you need? And they'll say, I don't know. But then they expect those needs to be met. If you can't give your partner that roadmap, they can't possibly meet it.
I need you to not be a mind reader. So, and the need to, like you talked about a good topic here in conflict, is one question to even start with is, what do I need when things get stressed? And I look at differences between external processors and internal processors of stress. External processors need to get it out of their system. They need to externalize it, talk with someone, whether that person gives feedback or not, doesn't matter. It might vary. But then the internal processor, they need space. And oftentimes I work with couples who have the difference, and they have to navigate how to meet each other's needs while respecting their own.
And that's where this language comes so
Yes.
important. If I'm in conflict and I'm like, Chris, like, I just want to walk away. I just want to take space. He's probably not going to take that as serious. Whereas if I say, Chris, I need a break. I need time out. Honoring that. He knows if I'm saying I need, it's pretty non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And that helps preserve the relationship's health over the longevity because I know he respects my needs. I know that he can hear them and I can hear his.
And
right?
importantly, he is attuned enough to know that you're using that in a genuine way.
Yes, that we're not doing that manipulation piece.
I see that too much. Obviously, it's coming up for me quite a bit. I need you to do the
dishes, and I need you to clean the house, and I need you to take care of the kids.
I need you to clean, and if you don't, like, I'm just going to be very unhappy. And I've had couples threaten divorce if that's not met. And it's like breaking this down. What do you really need? And conflict's a good one. What do we need in that moment? Because that's a dire time, right? To make sure that both of our needs are getting met. I look in the bedroom, sex. I think about a partner who's had sexual trauma.
Yeah.
I need you to not say X words to me because this was said to me when these acts were performed on me as growing up or whatever. Like very getting in tune with what is really, really important that you're needing versus is it an urge in this moment? And, you know, in the moment you might be like, this is a need, but reflect back and ask yourself, did I really need that in that moment?
Is it paramount to my health? And when I say health, it's crucial. It's clear. I'm not just talking about physical,
mental too.
Mental. Emotional. It's a tricky one. And it shows up in all kinds of realms. So I coach couples on, it can be, so I have this way I think through needs, but I break it down into several categories and I have couples talk about it. And so I have them look at what are your emotional needs? What are your physical needs? What are your mental needs? What are your health needs? Your financial needs? And have them break it down by each category. Because how I perceive emotional needs is going to look different than my husband's emotional needs. Much like love languages. I can't expect that he receives love or his needs are the same as mine.
Right.
I can't expect that because I say like, you're not meeting my emotional needs. He knows what that means. I have to get really clear for me. This is what my emotional needs are. This is how I need them met.
Yeah.
And these are some things I would love. I want, but I can negotiate on them.
An important question that I always ask in this thing is, I want partners to talk about it in that this is what I need, and this is how you can support me in this need. Not this is what I need you to do. Right.
That you language.
And if you don't, like making this conditional thing about it, of if you don't do this, and I'm going to feel X, and it's like, okay, this is my need. How can my partner best support this? We don't want to put that on them to fulfill that need because too much fosters codependency.
Sure.
Again, it goes back to this balance, but these are important questions again to ask yourself and your partner and discuss like what is important for us. What do we need as a couple? Maybe it's not an individual level. What do we need on a relationship level to make this relationship survive?
And where can we negotiate? The backside of this is you don't get everything you want. I know this is such a hard reality.
I better. Wait, Disney says I do.
We don't get everything we want. So it's deciphering what are the things, okay, that you can negotiate on. Not that you want to negotiate on. No one wants to negotiate on anything. But what are the things I can negotiate on? What are the things I can't?
Yeah. Kim, we've talked in previous episodes about your love-hate relationship with finances. So do you ever tell your husband, I need to not talk about this?
Oh, this is a sore subject because he did recently say the sentence, I need you more involved in the finances. And inside I'm like, no. Okay, next week. Yeah, next week. Deflection. So bad. Therapists are just as flawed people. Here's the deal. But yeah, for him, that is a need, I suppose.
So hold on, let's actually break this down a little bit, and maybe not using your situation specific, but it brings up a really good point of how we ask for these needs, because partners will use it in a way that can often be perceived as the other partner's not good enough.
Yeah. And
elicits defensiveness, which you're not going to get your need met when your partner's defensive. So when we ask for this, how are we talking about it? How are we phrasing it?
Good question.
And I love to do the validation sandwich. Validate your partner in what they're doing very well. And if you can, even in the same context. So I love, that, you're taking out the trash and you're very conscientious of cleaning up around here. You're doing an amazing job, and I'm so appreciative of you. I've noticed lately that I've been needing more, focus and attention from you in this area. But again, you're doing great in this stuff, and I would love if we can do that and what that looks like.
Talk about what that would look like. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So very sandwiching it. Don't make it all problem saturated of only talking about what needs aren't being met, because then the perception is relationship shit. So
now, if you bring up finances, I forgot everything else you said. And we all have these places where my resistance, right? I want to be like, well, I need to not be involved in finances. That's not a real need, but it is absolutely my resistance, right? What happens when our needs clash? Because sometimes they might. So how do we bend a little bit? How do I work through my resistance on the back end?
Yeah.
So I can meet this need.
I need you to not ask for needs.
Oh, Lord.
But another thing that's important in this context is just needs don't necessarily need to be the only thing that's addressed. Wants and desires too, right? I want to play more with my partner, I guess, right? Or I want to engage in more fun with my partner.
I want to plan a trip.
Like, and that means because we get to connect. So maybe some needs are met through that want. So
they're important, but it is deciphering that language. If we shift this language and agree mutually to shift this language, right? We both have to be on the same page about this.
Right.
We shift that language the second I hear I need, my ears tune in a different way, because now something has to shift in this moment. He needs something in this moment.
Maybe I'm evil. I can just see how this is so easily manipulated. But I'm like, well, I just imagine, and I can't imagine, I've actually seen this in the couples I work with. It's true. Is that they know if they do something like, say, in this case, I need that their partner is more attentive. Well, say they felt neglected for the last couple of weeks. So then they use that to get that met.
So it is also built on like a foundation of trust and this beneficence, right? Believing that our partner is doing right by us and doing well.
Yeah.
And it takes some finesse, right? Undoubtedly, this is not a simple implement and you're done. It takes some finesse. Sometimes I can say like, Chris, I need a break from the girls. And he can't give it to me.
Yeah.
There are times I'll call him. Oh God, my girl's at home. And there have been times when I called him at work and I'm like, I need you to come home. I need you to do something with these hooligans because I can't do it anymore. He cannot come home.
I'm just waiting for your daughter to grow up and listen to this and hear you call them hooligans.
I also call them sassholes, but you know, whatever.
so you bring up a great point of helping distinguish whether need or want is a great question to ask yourself is, can I live without it? That's one. The second question is, what would happen if I didn't get that met?
And is it a reasonable request?
Is it reasonable? Yeah.
It's hard to think through, right? Because sometimes especially with anxiety, in that urgency, it might feel like, oh my gosh, if you don't do this thing right now, like my whole world's going to come to an end and I have to tolerate more anxiety. When we come out of the anxiety, it's a lot easier to be like, oh, that wasn't such a big deal.
Right.
Whereas anxiety is really good at convincing us things are a big deal that aren't. As an anxious person, I know this.
Those commercials make us anxious and say that we need that new car.
Oh, I really need that new car.
Or we won't be loved. So.
Yeah, and I really need to go to Bora Bora. Chris, I hope you hear this. It's hard.
But those are really important questions because you can live without some of these needs not getting met, right? This is in a pure sense. You can't live without water, so that will deteriorate. Even shelter, you put you at risk. But what would happen, right? The relationship may not survive. So that might be a need if you look at it like that. And an important conversation to have for even premarital counseling, because these are things that determine if this person needs that. Is that something that I can find myself supporting? I don't want to say fulfill because I don't want to put that dependency on that.
Sure.
But is that something I can support, potentially long-term relationship? And that's an important thing to help decipher or uncover for these new couples is what are the things that my partner needs. And it starts with understanding what you need, as you brought up earlier.
And it's an open dialogue because what I need changes by season of life.
It better not.
Oh, yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And thinking about, could I survive without that parenting break? Sure. But can I remain the parent that my husband and I both want us to be? If I don't get that break, potentially no.
Right. And that's a need.
Because I get short and shitty with my kids. My oldest can
Mm-hmm.
attest.
Yeah, your efficacy changes. So that becomes a need, right?
And so it does, because even if it's not impacting my husband, we have an idea of what we want parenting to look like in our home.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't fulfill that mutually agreed upon standard or expectation, because I know I'm reaching threshold, then it becomes a need, right? Because now it's taking away from something that's important in our household.
Yeah, it's almost like in a way is like a need is how the things that I need to be efficacious individually and in a relationship, and physically and emotionally. To
be attuned, to be the person I feel good being, that my family feels good being, but also attuning to my partner. Sometimes, how do I say this? It's important we know our own needs. And sometimes we lose sight of our needs because we're stressed, because of whatever. It's also attuning to my partner. Hey, Chris, it looks like you could use some rest. Looks like you could use a break. Am I getting that right?
Yeah.
Attuning to his needs, right? Not just when I want to, not just when it's convenient, but really paying attention to those needs.
Yeah.
And asking and getting curious. Am I getting that need right? How can we facilitate that need?
Yeah.
Or if he asks for a need today and I can't, how can we facilitate that tomorrow or later tonight? Right. So getting curious about a plan, even if it can't happen right in this second.
Yeah. And again, being okay if they're not met, and asking yourself, what does it mean if they're not met? Because they may not be that place. But I love how you said facilitate this team effort. Like how can I support you to maybe even meet your own need? That's not completely dependent on me, but that might change, like with sex or things like that, or apparently finances right now.
You just keep bringing it up. You want to know my trigger? Bring up the word finances.
Hold on, I got a plug ready. So, one way to make sure that you are getting needs met is establishing boundaries.
You're going to say boundaries. I knew you were going to say boundaries.
So I actually wonder if anyone's keeping track of how many episodes we've actually consecutively put boundaries in there.
I don't want to know.
But boundaries are important to make sure that those needs are being met, because sometimes you have to put that up. And I think about my need is to, just for example, make sure that I'm present for my family more, my immediate family. But then I have extended family, in-laws or whatever, pulling from that are taken away from that need. And going back to this thing is, in order to be an effective, I guess, parent or spouse, I need X, but the extended family is taken away from that. And so I need a boundary that helps protect this, so my need is met, so I can be as effective physically and mentally as possible.
We think about it even in like a concrete way. Think about work.
Ugh, what?
Right? Our 40 hours, we clock in, we clock out, we're done.
60, 70.
Hopefully it's 40, you know, some jobs not. But there we have an easy time clocking out, by and large. Where this gets more muddled is emotionally. Can I hold that same boundary, clocking out at a certain point, or setting limits in those relationships at a certain point, in the same way I do work, right? Yeah. Can I attune to my need of, actually, I need alone time. I need downtime. So I'm not saying yes to every social function. I'm not having family over all the time, which we're really guilty of. I'm setting those limits because I know my need and I have to advocate for them. I can't leave it to someone else to advocate for my needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back. I mean, that balance comes back. We have needs, we want to communicate them, but we can't be highly dependent upon our partner to meet those needs, or family member to meet those needs. We got to look at what they are to be able to communicate them, understand that they're not always going to be met, what's going to happen if they're not, and are they really needs, or are they urges and wants, which, you know, would be nice to be met too, but it changes maybe the priority and kind of the, I guess the, priority. I had another word, but I lost it. So urgency. There you go. Yeah.
I want to encourage here, if you can't identify your own needs, try not to go into judgment. Sometimes it's hard to identify them, but do lean into things like therapy. Because however we grew up in our relationships, due to stress, and there's a multitude of things. Identifying your needs at different points in life can be actually really difficult. So get that support to identify them so you can actually get them met. There's so much liberation and freedom that comes with getting our needs met and feeling them being met.
Yeah.
We don't have to be stressed or tense all the time because we know
Mhm.
our needs are going to be met.
Yeah. And even learn skills to cope when they're not met. Because when our needs, unfortunately, at times are dependent upon, external factors like another person, like on a sexual level, that they're not dependable. We're humans.
Yeah.
We're going to fail each other. So how to self-soothe when those aren't met as well. So
this is so complicated because there's a lot of gray space. And the way I might define need is going to look different than you or my
Mhm.
husband or whomever.
yeah.
Have this open dialogue with your partner about when we talk about needs, what are we talking about?
Mhm.
How do we differentiate between those non-negotiable hard needs and the ones that we could actually flex a little bit more on?
Mhm. And just being real with yourself about that.
Mhm.
And being okay with, you might have more needs than your partner. That's all right too.
Oof. Well, thanks for joining us. This has been Relationships Inside Out. As always, if you have questions, comments, topic suggestions, ideas for guest speakers, please feel free to email us at relationshipsinsideout@gmail.com. And we look forward to meeting with you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.